welcome to the Run Ultra podcast. And that wonderful jingle is brought to you by Robin himself as
Oh,
my
awesome.
introduction. Um,
Well, here I am. Yes, the composer
the
of
composer.
yeah.
Are you pleased?
I'm really pleased with it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
think
I
it's
am.
do you know what I like about it? Which is probably quite unusual, and I hope I don't want to offend you if this is not how you meant it to come out. But it kind of reminds me of Friends,
Oh, right. Yeah, I
which
suppose it does actually.
which I kind of like because that's the sort of impression I want to give everyone is that we are all just sitting around with a cup of tea, uh, having a natter.
Yeah, I wanted it to be sort of happy, uplifting, and obviously guitar is my instrument, so it had to
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah,
slightly rocky. Yeah, but catchy as well. I think it's
yeah.
catchy.
I think it
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
I think it's lovely to have something that's unique and yeah, it's our jingle, and I'm incredibly proud and grateful that you made it for us.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, it's better
Um,
than choosing AI to do it, isn't it? Which everyone can do these days.
yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely.
Yeah.
Um, Now, I should start off by saying I have been roundly corrected, or rather, no, what's the right word? Ticked off. It's probably a bit too strong, but I did get a comment, which was absolutely true, that I don't introduce our guests properly. And not
Yeah.
everyone reads whatever the garble is for the podcast because they're normally out running,
Mhm.
surprisingly. So, I shall proudly announce today that our guest is Sarah Rowell, who is now the president of the World Mountain and Trail Running Association. And our podcast is proudly sponsored by Core Sensors. There's a new one out, the Core 2, which our official coaching partner, Nick Hancock, is currently testing. But that should be a really uh, good tool for anyone training, especially over winter. People
Mhm.
sweating on their treadmills and their pelotons. She says, looking at my
Yeah.
peloton, which I haven't touched for months. Um,
Picking up dust in the corner.
but yes, so we're looking forward to chatting to Sarah. I don't know about you, I've got a million questions for her. I think
I
her
do. Yeah, I've
background
got
is
quite a few.
fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah. What have you been up to?
I've been running, working, and with my family, which is generally just
Ah,
life
okay.
on loop.
Yes. Yes.
But
Yes.
the running's been going well, like steadily building back up every week. Every week more distance. I'm always excited to check my training plan to see how much more extra distance has been added. That's one of my
Just the
favorite.
distance. Is that
Yeah,
is that a big thing? Is that a unit that you use to measure your progress?
it is. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And every Thursday it gets updated in my training peaks. So I'm always just
Mm.
like
Oh,
refresh it, like, oh, how far do I get to go next week? Yes.
oh my lordy. I never look at, yeah, training peaks. Okay. Does that happen on the Thursdays?
I think
Is
it's
that a
just when my
thing?
coach it's just when my coach unhides it from me.
Oh,
Doesn't
okay.
doesn't
Oh,
like
they
to
hide
reveal
it.
it. Yeah, he doesn't like me to see too far into the future.
Oh. Okay. Oh, interesting. I am really surprised at the amount of mileage you're doing
Mm.
or for your 5K sort of goal
Yeah,
PB.
I suppose so. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's going to be roughly 50 miles this week. It'll be sort of, I'm trying to convert it for people who need me to convert. It's 93K. So what is that, like 57 and a
Yeah.
58?
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So I mean, it's all about building a really strong engine, a really good aerobic base. Like just
Hmm.
keep drilling myself back into sort of peak level of fitness. So I think it is the case, unfortunately. Like the more
Hmm.
you can run, the fitter you'll get, and that's why you see so many
It's
big
not rocket
runners.
science, is
No,
it?
it's not. No.
She says, before I get a comment from Nick saying, "Oi," but
Yeah.
yes, I mean, essentially, the further you go, then the easier the shorter distance are going to feel um,
Mm.
in that, yeah,
And
RPE.
And I think within this training, there'll be a bit more extra speed work. I'm normally used to just doing one speed session a week, whereas I think once I've got to a level of fitness that
Mm,
Ross is happy with, then I'll be doing probably two a week, I'd imagine.
yeah.
Two, yeah,
Do you
at least
run every day?
pretty much. Usually, there's the rest day like once every 2 weeks or something like that.
Okay. Yeah.
I did say to Jen that I would only be running 6 days a week and that one of the weekend days would always be a rest day.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's not been reflected in my current training plan. And I'm sort of hoping to get away with it.
But basically, so far, she's not said anything yet.
No, not yet.
Let's hope she doesn't listen to the podcast.
Yeah. No, no, we're all right. I think we're in the clear.
I think it's interesting, and I do like hearing about your training versus mine, because you're so much you've got such a broader, deeper base than I
Mm.
have. And I think there's lots of people out there who will relate to you, and then there's mine, which I'm coming back from the absolute ground zero, and it's easy to forget, and I think it's quite hard when you've had that endurance base to take yourself back to the start, and that's why I found having a coach really
Mm.
really great. But by contrast to you, almost every session I have has speed work in it because I don't run every day.
Right. Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah, because I'm running almost every other day. I mean, sometimes there are easy runs, but I always have to finish it with 5, 6 pickups.
Right.
But otherwise, I mean, yesterday I had a fiendish 3 minute, 4 times 3 minute hill,
Oh,
intense hills. And
3 minutes
then
hills. That is tough.
3 minutes hills. And then I had to do 5 30-second sprints as well up the hills. So it's like,
Up the hills again.
yeah.
Oh,
So I swear she's trying to kill me.
that is tough going. That really is tough going. I've not had that too many times. I think I've only had 3 minute hills once. Yeah, that is especially pushing intensely.
Yeah.
That's hard. That's high heart rate stuff there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, almost every time I go running now, my heart rate says, "Oh, I got a new heart, new highest heart." Like, yeah,
A
okay.
heart rate threshold. Yeah, like it's a big achievement. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, there's just no doubt about it. I feel better despite the fact that my running has been, especially with Mac having his operation and me not being able to go out with him, and which has meant I can't do my training when I do my commute to work, which was
Mm.
essential for me to sort of squeeze it into the week. Because of that, it's been really inconsistent for the last 2 months. But what the sessions she's given me has been such quality that I definitely,
Yeah.
I still feel like I'm improving.
Yeah. I mean, and you're building a form of consistency over the sort of longer periods of time anyway, more so than you weren't
Mm.
really even running before, were you, like a few months ago?
No,
So
no. I mean, I would say before June,
yeah.
I kept trying and giving up and trying and giving up. So yeah, it's only been. Um, but again, I think for me and for someone of my age, I don't think I could ever go back to running 6 days a week. I don't think my
Mm.
body would like it.
No.
And I definitely feel if I've had a couple of days off, the next run I do, I feel fantastic.
Mm.
So I think that rest is key for my body at this juncture. I need that rest to sort of consolidate the
Yeah.
training. Um,
I swear I don't feel any better after a rest day, you know. Um,
it's because it's
I,
probably not been restful enough.
no, probably not. No.
uh,
My legs are always just like, oh, I've got to get going again, for God's sake.
yes, it's interesting, isn't it? But
Yeah.
um, well, actually, well, here we go. Sarah has entered the room. Um, she may have more words to say on this topic, being uh, a senior citizen like I am, anyway. Hello, Sarah.
Hello.
Hello.
Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Um, Wait a minute. Just say something again, please, Kate.
Hello, hello. Welcome to Run Ultra.
Okay, don't think I'm going through the headphones. Does that cause you a problem?
Well, you sound great to us.
Yeah.
Okay, if is that still okay?
Yes.
Yeah, that
Yep.
sounds good.
Yeah,
Perfect.
yeah.
I am in an attic with empty house other than the dog, so hopefully there will be no disturbances. Thank you for that. I'm not quite sure. I can try and get the headphones to work, but I don't tend to use them.
No, 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 that's fine. You sound absolutely great. I actually thought you were in a sort of alpine hut, actually.
If only it is a converted attic, but yes, the wood does give it a certain feeling, but it is only in West Yorkshire, nowhere more exotic.
Oh gosh. Well, I'm not far from you then. I'm in West Yorkshire as well, near Leeds.
Oh,
Um,
whereabouts are you?
Methley,
Oh, okay. Yep.
flat as a pancake.
I'm Howard, so there's a few lumps and bumps,
Oh
but
yes, that's nice. Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's a million times nicer.
Sometimes.
Have you ever
Oh,
done the Haworth Hobble?
Yeah, I have done it, Robin, and I have an infamous claim to fame in that this was going back many years ago. Myself and partner Paul Sheard, as we came up onto Penistone Hill, we took the overall lead of the event. I had done the race 3 times before, so should knew where I was going. And depending on when you did it, it used to finish down the little cobbled street where the old school was, and in coming off the hill and trying to cut through a little ginnel that was there, I went wrong, ended up in someone's garden, amongst them washing, and the team behind us caught us up.
no.
And I have a picture of the sprint finish where Paul won, then the two guys, and then me. So I have it's a brilliant race. Loved it, but that wasn't my best moment of navigation, that's for sure.
Oh no.
Have you done, are you a regular or?
No, no, I keep meaning to do it. It always clashes with other things. It's quite a popular sort of race weekend, I think,
Yeah.
generally.
Mm.
But I hear many good things about it. Loads of people in my club always do it almost every year.
I did it 2017 maybe.
Right.
Um but it was very, very, very muddy and I twisted my ankle leaping over something um and pulled out but was almost feeling slightly guiltily relieved. Because it was there was some grim fields and sort of knee-high mud and cow pats and yeah.
They have changed it because not they've changed it, but certainly I think the third year I did it, when it went over from Top Withens over to the reservoirs, that bit then didn't have the paving stones down. And I was doing it that year with Carolyn Hunter Rowe, who was a world record long distance runner. And at one point she just lost, well, we found it, but she did lose a shoe, just getting sucked off in the mud. So but yes, there are still some exceptionally muddy bits on it for you to
Yes,
find.
yes, yes, definitely. And if it's a wet winter, because it's March, isn't it, or April?
Yeah, I'd say March,
Mm,
Aprilish, because it was always
mm,
it tended to be around the same time as the intercounties cross country, so sort of that time of year. You could get some decent weather. I think the first year I did it in shorts and t-shirt, and then you've got some fairly awful weather where you're in full body cover. So
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, obviously, you've just been taken on or taken the role of is president, isn't it?
yes.
President of the World Mountain and Trail Running Association.
If I, sorry, just if
Mm,
I can, we're only mountain running. We can get into the politics of mountain and trail running, but
oh,
WMRA is World Mountain Running Association.
just World Mountain. Okay,
Yeah.
okay, okay. Yes. I mean, I have so many questions, probably along those lines in the whole trail and mountain and fell
Oh, yes.
world. I mean, it's but yes, let's just park those to begin with, shall we? Um, Obviously, I was interested to know who you were, and you started out life as a record-breaking marathon runner. Um, uh, and attended the inaugural women's uh, marathon Olympics at LA. I mean, 1984. I mean, I'm still because I kind of get my head around the fact that it was the first women's marathon. Um, I mean that must have been an amazing event for both being invited plus the fact that it was the inaugural women's event.
Yeah, I think it was at the time, I'd literally been running 3 years. I'd watched the Moscow Olympic Games at a junior hockey training camp and had so I had a exceptionally fast learning curve. It was an amazing event. And I think it was also an amazing event because it was the first commercial Olympic Games. The previous Olympic Games had been in Moscow, and up until then, every Olympic Games was leaving countries saddled with massive debt. So going to the LA Games itself was a different experience because the sponsors were involved, etc., etc. But yeah, it wasn't a bad one to go to if it was going to be the only one, but that hadn't been the
Yes.
plan at the time.
Oh, amazing. I mean, how many women were there? I mean,
Gosh, you've caught me there. I would certainly say there were under 40. Um, it was, and of course, the whole event with the Joan Benoit winning her story with her knee trouble, but also that, yeah, it was, you'd had Greta Weitz's dominance for so long, you'd got Ingrid Christiansen coming along, and then ultimately Joan won. Probably not as favorite, but yeah, it was just an incredible story amongst a number of stories there.
yeah, yeah, I bet.
I mean, you had some incredible times back there. 72 minutes for the half, 2:28 for the full.
Yeah.
Which one of those are you more proud of?
Now that's a good, honestly, I think one of the races where, I mean, if in terms of on the road, it would be the 2:28 because it was a race. And it's very rare you go into a race and you come out of that race having achieved what you absolutely thought was possible.
Mm,
So, if you had said to me before that race, you're going to run 2:28, I would have grabbed it. So
yeah.
that was, but in terms of looking at a race where I think I really probably slightly better performance, and it's a bit of an odd one, it was what the Seven Sisters Marathon, which I did the following year. And won that was when I won it outright. And I think there's still only half a dozen men who've gone faster. So
Mm.
that was one where performance wise, I'd say I felt again I got a lot out of myself. But yeah, the 2:28 was just one of those special days.
Mm.
Oh man, that would be phenomenal to run that fast, wouldn't it? How was that at London?
Yes. Yes, I happen to be 7 minutes behind the winner, but well, we won't leave it.
Oh,
We won't
Wow.
go into that. That was when Ingrid Christiansen set the world record.
Right, I see. What was the
that's
starting
incredible.
field like for women at that time? Was it a separate starting gun, or were you racing with
No,
men from the off?
in 1984, when it had been the Olympic trials, they had set the women off first, but not as far as they do now. So around halfway through the race, you got these men coming past you. And while I was, if you're running sub 6 minute miles, and a man comes past you running sub 5 minute miles, you don't feel as fast as you are. That was, um, but certainly for 85, we were all in together and therefore had men to run with.
Mm. Which helps, I imagine. But still, yeah, that's interesting how it's changed over time, isn't it? They've clearly clocked that it's not individual enough. It needs a bit more time
Well,
to give the limelight to everyone who deserves it.
but does
You
it
know, I,
help?
I think also if you looked at 1985, Ingrid, the depth of women just wasn't there to create a viable TV spectacle.
Mm.
And
Mm.
we can come on to that when we look at where Mountain and Trail is now. So if you had done it as a separate race, you would have had the race itself, Ingrid went off. She was going for 2:20, so she disappeared. I think she might have had one female pacemaker, a couple of male pacemakers. Then Sally Ann went off fast. Then I went off fast. On that day, we all ran individual races. And for if there hadn't been men around, it would have been pretty boring for for the poor people on the television commentary. But yeah, I mean, the growth and depth of the sport means you can now have women's fields where you look at New York this year, where they were racing right up until the end, which is, okay, it's not always that case, but it's brilliant.
Yeah, it is for sure. It must be nice, even 40 years on, to still have 2:28 be such a phenomenal time for women to achieve. Like, that's still a very respectable time for anyone, even sort of well, you're getting close to Team GB level then, aren't you? You probably have to go more like 2:22-ish now. But I mean, with super shoes and everything, do you think there's how many extra minutes with everything that's changed, do you reckon you could have chopped off if you were born 40 years later?
Liberally, if I'm being brutally honest, I reckon if I had been able to race in 86, 2:25 never felt out of my reach. I can remember reading an article where they said, oh, this is a young woman who could run 2:20. At the time, that never occurred to me, but, running 2:25 felt reasonable to me. Now, how much off that you can then, by the time, I barely drank in the race. I didn't take in any fuel. So when you add in shoes, you add in fueling, you add in altitude training. How much faster could I have gone? Who knows? But you did what you did at the time. And yeah, at the time I was the 10th fastest woman ever. Didn't last very long because it was a period when people were, pushing the boundaries, but it was just great to be part of.
Wow. Yeah, absolutely. 10th in the world, that is something else, isn't it?
And to watch it progress and develop in that time must be really interesting as well, and to see how technology and nutrition and training and I mean everything has grown and developed, hasn't it?
Yeah, I suspect that a combination, particularly with the super shoes and the energy return, I suspect they've probably fundamentally made some quite big changes to marathon running. The fueling as well, if I look back when I was running, and again, the science at the time I was running suggested that probably taking on too much fuel was going to be bad for you because you get an insulin spike, and therefore you didn't. Therefore, you trained to be able to use fat. There's much less need to do that now because any decent marathon runner will take on fuel when they're performing either fluid or gels. So that fundamentally then changes the physiology of where you need to improve. Again, and I suspect the fatigue resistance of the shoes probably makes as bigger, if not, difference as opposed to just the energy return. But that then changes what you can do in training.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah. Do you think the shoes will physically alter us or alter training, or alter our biomechanics?
I haven't looked into it enough. Interestingly, scrolling through social media, and I didn't have a time to look. There was, I think it was so I came across an article of someone who's suing Nike because they say the carbon plate in their shoe gave them a stress fracture, which is I'm sure it must be in America for someone to think about doing that. But I don't know, Katie, because I think if you look, super shoes aren't for everybody. And if you go back 10 years ago, we were all being told you've got to wear those little Vibram 5 fingers, and you've got to be totally back to nature, etc., etc. I think and again, once we get off road, then when the super shoes with the stack height came out, there were to begin with, a number of athletes who twisted their ankle because the stack height was too high.
Yeah.
I am still surprised at how well some people cope with quite a decent stack height on technical ground. It's something that I would never want. It may change, but I think if you are running, particularly on trails and off-road, then the stack height part just doesn't give you the benefit that it would on road.
Yeah,
I completely agree.
Yeah,
completely agree.
too.
Like, because you get a lot of trail shoes now with a very high stack height, and they're including carbon plates in trail shoes. And if it's not a hard, responsive trail that you're running on, then there really can't be that much
sense,
benefit.
does it? No.
Yeah.
No.
That's forever intrigued me. What? So you were a super successful road runner. What made you turn to the World Mountain Championships?
It wasn't necessarily it wasn't by choice. I started having trouble with my left leg, which would cramp up when I ran on flat, smooth surfaces. And I ended up having 3 operations on my leg and 1 on my back, and none of them were able to sort it out. I suspect probably if I was 21 again now, access to better physio and conditioning, because my view now is that somehow when I was running, it was a tilting in my pelvis, my mechanics were changing, and it was causing nerve irritation. But I could run off road, and I went after I did my degree. I had a year as a full-time runner and got totally bored. No, obviously, internet was still way off in the distance, and I had an opportunity to go back and do a PhD, and I went back to do it very much thinking this will just keep my brain occupied while I focus on my training. That didn't work out, and I'd always enjoyed off-road running. I'd always liked doing the Seven Sisters, and there was an event called the Orion 15 that I did, and cross country at that point was, well, I once finished 5th in the national. Cross country for me was really too short at that point, because we were still only really allowed to do 3-4K. And I then moved up to Leeds to get a job and started running on what I would call baby fells, not the really extreme ones. And then LinkedIn, went to the World Mountain Running, and sort of it went from there.
How did that come about? Yeah, it was second in the 92 championships. So, I mean, how did you get there?
I'd moved up to Leeds, and I had then started doing sort of local. I think before that I'd done there's Box Hill fell race. So before I'd moved up to Leeds, I'd started doing more off-road events at the time I was down in Eastbourne, so on the South Downs, and then I'd done Box Hill. Then I'd moved up to Leeds, and I can't remember how I found out so I started doing more events, and then the first year I went to D89 for the World Championships, I finished 4th. And I can remember thinking, oh, this is brilliant, and at the time I was coming back from a bit of a sort of under recovery type layoff. So I was building back up my training again. And so was training with a group in Leeds a bit, and just sort of went from there. And then the following year I went, and I didn't do as well. And with hindsight, it was because I was really just training as I'd always trained, as opposed to putting in more hill-based work. I was always very good on the flat. I was always very good at running downhill, but my weakness of the 3 was relatively was going uphill. And then, so I then focused on that, and I'd sort of plan my year. So the early part of the year would either be the 3 peaks, with potentially the infamous Haworth Hobble as part of the build-up for that. And then the end of the year would be the World Mountain Running Championships. And that was how it worked for a few years.
I've never done the Three Peaks, and I was speaking to someone about it recently because it always seems quite intimidating to me, despite having done more elevation and done further distance. It's so quick, and the hills are such big spikes that sort of come out of nowhere on the elevation profile. That and I also had got it into my head that the terrain itself was quite difficult, but actually I've heard that it's quite runnable.
It's changed. I mean, if you look at it, while the route has sort of stayed the same, changes to it and just natural changes to the race have made it, I would say, a lot more runnable. They pave the boggy bits, or they take the boggy bits out, and it is, you probably, I mean, depends. Yes, the climb up Whernside is still sort of straight up the front, but the other ones are runnable. The descents, in some ways, actually, the descent off Ingleborough, I would say, is not as pleasant because they've paved it. The consequence, it's not a nice, muddy, splashy descent. It's sort of paved, and you've got to sort of pick your way a bit. But
Dodge tourists.
I'd say it's very much fell runners don't always do as pure fell runners don't always do as well as it on it as they think because it is so fast. My partner Andy Peace, who used to hold the record until they changed the course, at the time he set the record, and the same with me, and the same with Victoria Wilkinson. We were all doing a lot of fast running as well as going uphill. Whereas if you were someone who was just doing lots of fell running, you struggle simply either with cramp or just coping with the, as you said, Robin, it's particularly between Pen-y-Ghent and Whernside. It's just a long, fast piece of flat running.
Yeah, it's such a unique race for that. Is that what kept you going back to it? It just fit your profile well.
Yeah, and again, the World Championship was for women at that point was only about 7K.
Wow.
My best distance, I always felt that my best distance, I would say, running wise, was between 2 to 4 hours, and that was a distance that I could get into a hard, steady pace and hold. And that sort of what physiological testing I had done showed that my VO2 max really wasn't that high, but what I was able to do was hold a very high percentage of it for a long period of time. So the Three Peaks at the time naturally suited my sort of range of where I enjoyed and felt I was good at.
Would that be very similar to sort of maybe the short trail, I suppose?
Yeah, if I was looking now at going to a world championship or a European championship, then yes, I would be very much more looking at the short trail, as it is called, as opposed to either the classic or the uphill.
Yeah, short trail. It's 45K with loads of elevation, but don't worry, it's short.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the way they call that, the short.
Yeah.
Well, we can get into the story of that, but yeah.
What did you notice any sort of differences going from the road to the fell running in terms of being a woman? Was there any difference in the cultures? Were you just as was being a female just as much of a novelty in the fell running world as it was in the road running world?
In some ways, well, if back when I was running seriously, I was incredibly intense. And I think that probably the biggest thing was I just carried that intensity from racing on the road to the fells, which, and I'm sure a lot of people now would have sit and go, I don't understand that woman. She walks around, she doesn't smile, she turns up, she warms up seriously, she races, she does reasonably well, and then she might smile a little bit at the prize giving. So I suspect for a lot of people, I was this quite strange being, not because I was a woman, but because for the very, I'm very good friends with people like Ian Holmes and a lot of the others, and you see them, and it's just such a more relaxed atmosphere. but I wasn't, and that was partly because my nature and partly because I'd come from in terms of the slightly more intense nature of the roads.
Mm.
So yeah, and within that, it never really occurred to me. I never felt strange for being a woman. Okay, yes, you might. If you did, it was because you got grumpy at the prize giving when you realized that the disproportionate level of prizes between men and women. But in the race, it was rare that I had a lot of opposition as from women, which was a pity, and I could have done with having, learning to race women more often, but therefore you just got used to racing the men. And I have only one experience where I stopped in the middle of a race because I felt there was a man who every time I overtook had to overtake me back. And, it just felt a little bit like he didn't like it because I was a woman. But other than that, no, I'd say I was fully accepted.
Brilliant. Good to
That's
know.
that's surprising, actually. I think I expected you to go down the path that the sport had forced you to be that intense because there was that sort of ridicule of being a woman. So it
No,
is nice to hear, actually, that
no,
it wasn't like that.
no. I see if others struggled with it, I'm very sorry for it. I never had, and I think some of it, I when I was running well, I was finishing high up, and you'd like to think that people just respected you for
Yeah,
where you were finishing. And women's running was still growing, and it meant that I was able to take chunks of times off records, which was no reflection on the people whose records. It was just the same as you've seen on the road and in any other disciplines. It was just
Progression.
growing to its
mm,
natural position and where records and things should be.
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I have to say, in 11 years of running, trail running and ultra running, I've never had a bad experience from anyone on the trail or in a race. Yeah, whether that, I mean, that should be normal, but
Mm.
we're kind of sitting here thinking, oh, that's lucky. But I mean, I've honestly never had an issue, so it's good to hear. It's good to
So
hear.
so moving on to the new position. Before you did that, you were on the committee for a few years, and then you were treasurer for a few years. Because I'm an accountant, I have to ask, what was being treasurer like?
WMRA, WMRA is a very small volunteer group. Treasurer at the time was we sort of had two accounts, and it was, I think if you were an accountant, you'd find it very easy because it was more a case of, okay, try and create something that balanced the books and then pay out checks and pay in checks. And that bit never felt, oh, I'm not an accountant. I enjoy playing with figures, and I don't mean that sounds worse than it sounds. Money, the finance side of things interests me, but I'm not professionally qualified. So, and in some ways, WMRA, there's a sort of tradition, a historical tradition that in sort of the volunteer type international federations, the treasurer, the secretary, and the president get more involved in some of the projects than say the other council members do. So being treasurer, yes, you had the part to do with setting the budget. And I'm honestly quite honest, probably the worst bit of being treasurer was trying to tell people not to spend money because I wanted to make sure that we stayed in budget and that we had a decent level of reserves that we held and didn't just spend all the time.
So does your money come from memberships, fees? How does it work?
The primary source of funding now is a grant from World Athletics.
Okay.
So WMRA, way before my time, have always had a good relationship with World Athletics, and at the moment, it's now formalized. We have a signed MOU with World Athletics, which now gives us the grant against a series of objectives. In effect, they consider us their sort of mountain running delivery arm because they don't have the expertise, or they don't do that themselves. We also we run the World Cup, and that runs, so all the money that comes in sponsorship is used to run the World Cup. So we try to run that as a standalone, i.e. we don't make money from the World Cup. If we any money that comes in is invested back into prize money, anti-doping, etc. The other sources are linked as we work with World Masters to do the World Masters mountain running championships, and we do have membership. But for us, one of the downsides of the current partnership is when WMRA ran its own world championships, to take part in the world championships, you had to be a member of WMRA. Now the World Championships is this combined thing with much greater World Athletics involvement. Any World Athletics member can take part in the World Championships. You don't have to be a member of WMRA. Therefore, the incentive to be a member of WMRA is not the same.
No. Well, they've effectively removed it, haven't they?
Yes.
So,
but at the same time, if you're interested in sort of being a part of the committee, I imagine becoming a member is the first step towards that.
Yes, if you want to, any country who wants to go to the Congress, vote at the Congress, put a member forward for the council, or to attend the under-18 competition we run, then yes, you still have to be a member of WMRA. But if you only joined to go to the World Championships, then you don't have to be a member anymore.
Okay.
Which leads us to the politics of it all. I mean, how do you see the future of the governance of the sort of messy? It's such a messy conglomerate, isn't it, of sort of trail and ultra, or whether ultra just is in trail and whether that becomes the one umbrella, or mountains. I mean, there's so many arms of it, aren't there?
There are, and it reminds me of something people say about the structure of performance sport in the UK. If you started with a blank piece of paper, you wouldn't end up with where we are now.
Yeah.
If you look at historically, the WMRA goes back to the early 80s. So mountain running as it has been around since the early 80s. It's had a world championship since then. It's been linked to World Athletics since then. Trail running in a sort of formal sense has come along, and as a speed train, if you like, since then. And I think, again, if you're looking at this, so World Athletics regulations for a long time have had a definition of what mountain running was. When we sat down in 2017, because there was a view that they also needed to have a definition of trail running, when you look at it, you go, well, realistically, it's very, very difficult to separate the two.
Yeah.
Every mountain race is a trail race. Not every trail race is a mountain race.
Absolutely.
And you've got a race such as Sears and Owl, which some people will call a mountain race, some people will call a trail race, some people will call something else. So we created a combined Rule 57, and we've gone even further, and we've revised the Rule 57 for this year, within which trying to present mountain and trail as one entity, which aligns to the World Championships. The politics then behind the running of that World Championships is because it was two championships coming together. So you had WMRA who'd had two championships WMRA by the time they came together had been running a World Championship which had either an uphill or a up and down and a long distance. And then you had the international ultra runners who'd started an ultra trail championship, and then they'd joined with ITRA to create a partnership to run theirs. So it was the coming together of those two groups that created what we've got at the moment, which, personally, Robin, we were laughing earlier at being called the short trail. The names don't, for me, make sense. You've got uphill, classic, short trail, long trail. If you're it's not my decision, try and influence it, but but again, some of that is linked. Someone said to me the other day, has it all combined into one? And in some ways it has, but there are still a lot of people, if you say trail, they think ultra trail. So if you say to them, I'm doing a trail race, they automatically think you're doing a race that is over marathon distance.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So particularly if you look internationally, if you look at things like UTMB, if you look at a lot of them, there is this view that, trail running is ultra running, which is linked into why we've got the sort of funny mix, was because the mountain running was under marathon distance, the trail running was over marathon distance, which is a most really illogical sentence when you say it, but that's where historically it came from.
Gosh.
At the moment, it's working. But yeah, I think it's evolving. If you were to ask me, do you think it'll look entirely the same in 4 years with the same names, etc.? I don't think it will. But I think what is important, certainly for me and for WMRA, is that there are a lot of runners who want to keep some of the uniqueness that are mountain races, that you don't have equipment, they're shorter, they're faster, they're not the same as the longer trail running. And it's working to create an environment where all of those can thrive.
I mean, does there need to be an umbrella over mountain and trail and ultra and track, and I mean 24-hour rather than obviously not track.
The bit that I'm involved with doesn't really get into the 24 hours and the track/road ultra.
No.
What we are seeing is that World Athletics recognizes that the mountain trail off-road running is the fastest growing area of the sport. It also now, with drones and camera runners and camera bikers, is one of the most exciting to watch. Whether that's looking at the stunning scenery or whether it's watching runners try and run uphill or downhill, I can remember going to one of the early championships and someone, to film it, you either had a guy sitting with a big heavy camera on the back of a truck pushing diesel fumes at you, or someone at one point tried to put a camera on a rail up somewhere to film it. And that's what you could do. If I looked at the filming that was coming out of Canfranc at the World Championships, honestly, one of the things that impressed me the most was the skills of the mountain bikers who were riding the course.
Especially those hairpins.
Yeah. But that just creates such stunning TV that you don't get if you're on any other type of athletics.
Yeah. Do you see that across the board, that the live streaming is what's needed almost for the growth of the sport?
I think it depends what you mean by growth of the sport. the organic growth of the sport, people doing the sport, will happen without it. The growth of the sport at the top, with the money coming in and the professionalism at the top, will need the live streaming, because that will increase sponsors wanting to come in. It will increase the potential of it being considered for an Olympics. It will increase the brands. All the brands. I can't think. Well, maybe Mizuno, but if you look at all the and Puma, but you've got Nike, you've got Asics, you've got Adidas, are now all seriously funding shoes and runners who operate in the mountain and trail space, and they're taking on the Hockers, the Merrills, the Solomons.
No.
So that's never been as big as it is in terms of people fighting for eyes. And so yes, the more it is on, the Solomon series is on Discovery, so the more that happens, then yeah, it opens up a world and brings people in. I suspect if you didn't have TV, you'd still get growth in people wanting to do the races,
Yes.
but you might not get the same sort of sponsorship, etc., coming in at the top.
No.
You mentioned Olympics, which was one of my questions. And one of the things that I've read suggests that one of the main issues is that there's not a global governing body for trail. And with so much, is that true?
No, it's not, because, sorry to interrupt, World Athletics is the global body.
Right.
If you read going back, the World Athletics is the governing body for athletics. World Athletics in its rule book gives a definition of what it's at the moment called mountain and trail.
Right.
So yes, the World Championship isn't solely run by World Athletics. It's still run by partners in association with World Athletics. But for trail stroke mountain to get into the Olympics, it would go in, the only way in is via World Athletics, because that's where it sits. It doesn't sit in sky running. It doesn't sit in mountain running. Then it is the question of, it then becomes, do the IOC want it in there? Do the host institution want it in there? And does World Athletics want it in there? And then you've got to look at the costs, the numbers, and what.
How far away do you think we are from that happening, or is it not yet popular enough?
I think we are as near as we've ever been. I'm sure you'll have seen that there is a big push for 2032. There's a Brisbane group, Solomon behind that. So there is a push there. I know also that the French are very keen to look at it going into the Winter Olympics, particularly because they have got the Winter Olympics in Annecy.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that seems a pretty good likelihood, really, doesn't it?
But
or better.
Ultimately, it's going to come down to, as you said, does this appear to be something that is going to create a competitive spectacle that is going to get new people watching and new sponsors involved? That's what will make it that's what the IOC want. They want relevance and they want people watching.
I can't remember the name of his name now, to the shame of me. Was it a year or two back? I interviewed the chairman of the working party who were campaigning for trail running at Brisbane.
Michael Duggan.
That's it. Yes. Yeah, lovely chap. And yeah, that's what they're pushing for there. And he very much believed that he thinks sort of the next step is some sort of virtual goggles where you can sit down either in the stadium or at home and watch. I mean, whether that's
I think
YouTube will just be just as good.
There are very different views as to what it would be. Personally, from what I know, and my day job has been working with performance sport in the UK. If something, and if we look at what has happened to other sports and disciplines in the Olympics, you know, you've seen pentathlon go from 5 days to 1 day. The Olympics need, from what I can see, things that are exciting and happen quite quickly. I find it hard to see that someone is going to want a 100K or a 100-mile race in the Olympics because it just takes too long. But creating something shorter, sharper, which has got some climbing and some descending in, for me, has much more potential. And also, the figures, you know, as someone said to me, whatever the cost of putting on a world championship, add another naught to the end to put that same event on in the Olympics, given the higher security level, the higher level of everything. So, you know, again, it just practically, if you think you've got a 100-mile course, you've got to, how can you film it all? How can you make it all secure? So, but there are lots of examples where you just look at triathlon. Triathlon didn't try and get the Ironman into the Olympics. Triathlon created the Olympic discipline, and now it's even got shorter disciplines, but they all thrive.
Yeah.
So
that's a great comparison.
You know, and for me, the two comparisons, one are triathlon, and then the other are sports, something like skateboarding, which have a very different culture to your traditional sports. But again, you can combine the two, and if you do it in the right way, the two can thrive.
I think there is a good window for it in the Winter Olympics. I'd never considered it from that angle before, but people, I mean, I watch the Winter Olympics. I don't do any Winter Olympic sports. So surely the same sort of logic can be applied to new people who might watch trail running.
And I think, you know, I don't know how much you follow the IOC, but, you know, the Kirsty Coventry has set up a number of commissions, one of which is looking at the whole of the programming of the Olympics. And they've talked about, you know, are there new sports that could go in, or even moving some of the summer sports who are indoors into the Winter Olympics. And some of that is, it's just numbers. You know, the Summer Olympics, the number of athletes and the number of sports is just becoming too big. You know, it's in our own way, the World Championships is struggling in the same way, but the Olympics becomes too big for one host. So you have to look at it to create something that is sustainable and realistic.
Yeah.
I mean, how important is it? You know, does it have to be part of the Olympics?
No, I don't think it does. And I think my own personal view is, having been to an Olympics, that I would love to see that the athletes who want to go and who are the best trail mountain runners in the world have the option to do so. But you're right, it would, you know, when you look at the variety where you've got some people who specialize in running uphill for 30 minutes, you've got others who specialize in running for 100 miles in 24 hours. Whatever goes into the Olympics isn't going to get all of them. But if it grows the sport, then for me that is better. And in the UK and in a lot of countries, the funding they get from the government is tied to the Olympics. UK athletics, all the money UK athletics get from the government for performance has to be used to support those who go to the Olympics and Paralympics. It cannot be used to support something like mountain and trail. And UK isn't alone in that. Whereas if you look at, and there are some countries who don't, the World Athletics Member Federation still doesn't recognize mountain or trail because it's not in the Olympics and it's not formally under World Athletics. So it doesn't have to. I am optimistic enough to think that it can thrive being in the Olympics, but also the smaller events and those who don't want to go can, you know, just crack on as they are. But it would give greater opportunities and greater support to some athletes.
Yeah, and just greater recognition for some of these people who are just absolutely incredible athletes that most of the world have never really heard of. And you just kind of want that for them as well. Although quite a lot of the people who tend to be the highest performers aren't too bothered about the spotlight either. So
I think though you're right, and it's great if I still follow Athletics Weekly, and it's great to see you got Tom Evans, Scout, and Jack Sanderson, three mountain and trail runners who are all in their favorite things. And even if the athletes don't, we can't. The athletes that are making full-time livings out of it need their sponsors, and the sponsors who are paying them need publicity. No sponsors, stating the obvious, no, sponsors don't give you shoes because they like you. They give you shoes because they think it's going to sell more shoes.
yeah.
Yeah.
And if we can create better environments for athletes to be able to show their brand, then hopefully that will help the athlete prove to the brand that they're worth the money.
Mm. I learned that a bit the hard way. I was trying to chase becoming what was known as an ASICS front runner for a
Right.
while. And you get sucked down a bit of a rabbit hole in that, well, I need to buy ASICS stuff for them to consider me to become an ASICS front runner. And then after a while, you sort of wake up and realize I'm just a part of the big sort of money marketing machine that the whole program was designed for.
Yep.
Yeah. But, they're big companies. They need to make money, I suppose.
When I finished second in London, I was sponsored by Adidas.
Awesome.
And I went up to, so after I'd finished second, my brother was at university in Sheffield. So I sort of did a road trip north, went to Sheffield, went to the Adidas office and met a guy, Robin Money, and he was very happy and very nice. But he then did say to me, and this was back in the days when you wore, you either wore club kit or you wore sort of British kit. You didn't wear your sponsors kit.
Right.
And I used to wear my numbers really high up. And he said, Sarah, it was a great performance. We're really pleased with you, but please, next time, don't cover the Adidas logo up. So, yeah, my
Yeah.
value to him, having been on television, etc., was limited in. But you're right. They don't pay me to do well. They paid me to show their brand.
Oh, you could have shown it so well as well.
Yeah. Is there not then there's a sort of a clash between sponsors, athletes, and then if they're chosen for their country?
Yes. And it's always been, I have been on the board of UK Athletics for a while, and you can guarantee it is always, there are certain events that athletes will always do, but I can remember negotiations even with the Olympics, which for UK is always Adidas, that you'd get certain athletes and who were uncomfortable about having to wear the Adidas shoes on the podium when they want to wear their own shoe. And for GB competitions outside the sort of core one, it is always easier to get the athletes whose shoe company is the same as the brand that are currently sponsoring you. So once UKA switched to Nike, there were more athletes who were happier to run. And I think that's probably, Katie, one of the hardest things for a lot of the trail runners and it's one of the things that's caused the most angst with the World Championships.
Oh, really?
Because for a lot of the people who've come off the trail, they haven't come from a traditional athletics background. And suddenly they are being told to go there, they have to wear the kit of the company that is now sponsoring their national team. And that the way it is, they have to wear the kit. They obviously don't have to wear their shoes, and they in most cases can use whatever backpack and waterproofs the stuff they carry. But yeah, there have been some athletes who haven't been that happy. And of course, conversely, the brands who sponsor the teams now see it as more important to make sure that everything is followed absolutely to the letter, and that their sponsorship of the national team gets full priority.
But I mean, it must be harder in mountain and trail running because there's so much more gear. Which I mean, there are some brands that will be able to offer it all, but
And
not all of
we
them.
very much we recognize that with the current rules. So the current rules state obviously you have to run in the vest and shorts or top and bottom, but the waterproofs, the poles, the backpacks are all considered personal equipment, like shoes.
Okay.
Therefore, athletes can wear and use whatever they want, but they just have to make sure the logos are apply to the advertising rules that apply to any World Athletics event. Because you're right, you can't, even Team GB, you look at the waterproofs they get, they'd be in a massive disadvantage if they had to carry them as opposed to the lightweight ones that everybody does.
Do they have tape seams?
I think they might have tape seams, but given the weight of them, they
Yeah.
probably.
Gosh, it's such a thorny area, isn't it? You must have the tact of a NATO negotiator.
You try to do your best. I mean, it's a fine balance. Being an ex-athlete, I always like to think that I look at it from the position of the athlete,
Mm,
but you also have to recognize that you've got to look at it from the position of the people who are putting the money in. And go, people who put money in want to see a return for that money, and you've then got to run an event that runs
mm,
smoothly and safely and
mm.
is fair.
Being the president now of the WMRA, what does the role really involve, and like what can you idealistically change?
If you
Um,
want to.
if I
If you
want
want
to,
to.
I mean, we so there are, I guess, two things. One, wearing the WMRA hat, I am involved in the decisions around the World Championships, and the same hat, the World Athletics has a mountain and trail advisory group. So at one level, it gives you the ability to influence or suggest or be involved in those discussions. And wearing similar hat, there's a small group we are working with Michael Duggan and the team down there in terms of, okay, well, if we're looking to get something into Brisbane, how can we work together? On the pragmatic basis, it's best to get something in rather than hold out for the idealistic. And then there is okay, what can WMRA do? We have our World Cup. It is the primary circuit for those who don't for shorter distances. Yeah, there's Golden Trail, there's UTMB, there's World Trail Majors. But if you want to do well at races that are sort of certainly not all over 2 hours and hike, the longer stuff, then there is the World Cup circuit. It offers payment. We have anti-doping. We have an educational role. We do an under-18 competition. And so, and we can look at other things. And I guess my hesitancy is that we as a council will meet for the first time in February. And it very much at that meeting is going to be a case of, okay, we had a strategic plan for the last 4 years. What do we as a new council want to achieve over the next 3.5 years? And
Oh, I'd love to be a fly on the wall for that meeting.
do we look to do any more events? What do we do with media? What do we want to achieve? Do we just want to tick over? What do we think it's going to look like? And that will be we'll have a couple of days coming together and really bashing it out. And I have my thoughts of what I'd like to do, but what I want to hear is what the other 7 members of the council want to achieve, and then work together to create something.
And I mean, are you all dotted around globally in a
Yes. Yeah, we've
strategic
got
fashion?
the majority are in Europe, one in America, one in Australia. We historically come together once a year or twice a year, once in Monaco or Nice, and we Monaco sounds very grand, but that's where World Athletics are based, and we sort of combine it with days talking to them, meeting their different departments. And you know, if we do it in Nice, it's right, we can meet right next to the airport. It's not, it's and then after that, it will primarily be online. Yeah, bringing people from all over the world together for a meeting isn't cheap, and
No.
therefore got to make the most of it. And actually now, I guess the slight bonus, if anything, you know, the slight positivity coming out of COVID is we're all so much happier or more used to sitting and doing things like this, so we don't all have to be in the room all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is true.
I mean, obviously the World Mountain and Trail running champs were incredibly successful. And looking forward, I mean, you got 2 years now to South Africa. I imagine part of the planning will be building on that. I mean, is the idea to sort of to keep growing it? Can you benefit from its growth in terms of funding or yeah?
The champion growing is an interesting word, because I don't think you grow. We have to grow it in the right way, and that isn't just more people, because it's very. We already require the host to have nearly 2,000 beds. Now, the type of, which isn't okay. Cape Town is different, but there are very few places with easy access to the mountain terrain where you can find 2,000 beds.
Yeah.
Oh no, that kind of ruins my question about whether you think it could be in the Lake District.
The problem with the Lake District is also it just doesn't, you don't have the infrastructure for the uphill race.
Right.
You'd have to helicopter everybody off Skiddaw at the end, as opposed to making them walk down as we do for the trials.
Right.
So there's that. And, you know, if you looked at the races that we had in Canfranc, the numbers mean you're starting. We did a feedback session with some of the athletes, and certainly in the short trail, they're already saying, look, can we have separate starts for the men and the women? Because it's getting there's too many people and it's getting too crowded. And that becomes the balance of trying to design courses that remain good and aren't just, hey, it's on a big 4-wheel drive track that runs around everything. So there's that one. And also, you know, while we want to grow the sport, we have to be aware that this is a world championships. And the differential between the people at the front and the people at the back is way too big.
Right.
So one of the things that we have to address, and it links into the numbers, is how do you quality assure the event? Not as easy. If you go into the track, you just have times, etc. So there are ongoing conversations about, how you create one unified ranking system to be able to say, look, to go to the World Championships, you must have X number of points or something. Because while I don't know how much you followed it, but if you look back at Thailand, then Innsbruck, then Canfranc, probably the mountain races, so the classic and the uphill, they've always been as strong as you've always had the best athletes. But the timing has meant that for the short trail and the long trail, excuse their names, there's people have often decided to go to UTMB or something different.
Yes.
This year, what we saw was high class runners at the front end of both the short and the long trail. Ideally, we'd get a bit more depth behind them, which is where we need to go. But it's that balance between, growing the event in terms of its prestige, which is happening, so that we have more of the best runners there, but not just looking to grow the event to have more runners, because both from an accommodation point of view and also just the courses, they can't cope. And we don't want to have, Canfranc had less than Innsbruck, but there are runners who don't hit the cutoff points and then they're stopped. And we have to do that for safety reasons, but we shouldn't be, ideally you want that to be as few as people as possible because people understand the event that they're going to.
No, you want to have gone through that process before they've entered, so that that's not going to. So does that mean you need to start looking at your own sort of, dare I say it, point system or entry
There are
qualifications?
ongoing discussions at the moment with World Athletics, with ITRA, with WMRA about, okay, because again, if we're optimistic and think that some form of the sport can make it into the Olympics, you will need some sort of rank. There will be a limit to the size of the field, whether it is summer or winter, and that would need some form of ranking. Probably like skiing or some of the other sports, you'd then need to come up with a ranking system. I don't know whether you do some area championships and then some ranking, but whatever it is, you'd need some way of deciding who could then take part or who could be invited to take part.
Yeah, I'm not surprised that ITRA is mentioned in relation to that, because it immediately springs to mind that the ITRA ranking system is a good place to start.
It's the only one out there, really, isn't it?
Well, there's UTMB ranking, WMRA has its own ranking, and there's ITRA ranking. And I think there are, I personally, while I know they're working on it, but both UTMB and ITRA rankings are much more biased towards the longer distances than the shorter ones.
Right.
And that's just recognition of the type of races that they cover.
Right.
But yeah, I think it's fair to say there are ongoing conversations to try and create and agree one ranking, and it's something the athletes want, because athletes, again, if you've got a shoe contract and some of them say, oh, we want you to have so many UTMB points. Some of them will say, oh, we want you to be so many ITRA points or the world or the WMRA points. It would be helpful not to have so many markers.
But does that not have us then circling back to a central governing body?
Yeah, and I think, Katie, that's where technically it is World Athletics, but World Athletics is working in partnership, and that's where the conversations that take place. Their working group has WMRA on it, it has ITRA on it, the PTA are on it. So the World Cup is on it. So there are those discussions ongoing. And I know there are some people who think, oh, World Athletics shouldn't get involved and all the professional circuits, but the conversations are involving those professional circuits. And I, again, am optimistic to believe that if we get it right, they can all thrive alongside each other. They don't have to be in competition. But athletes then get choice, as opposed to just being one system.
Yes. I think it's incredibly exciting. I mean,
it is. It's
we're at the start, almost really at the start of the sort of formation of a global movement in a way, as it feels its way to the future, with all its funny little legs going off in different directions.
Yeah, and again, I think I heard a interview with sorry, when you get old, you forget names.
Yeah, I'm there.
American guy who won the long trail.
Jim Walmsley.
Interview with Jim Walmsley, and he was really nervous about the Olympics, and he was sort of going, we don't want to become the norm, the hockey, the netball, not netball, they're not in, but hockey, etc. And I sort of sat there and I thought, I can see that, but if you look, say, as I say, at the skateboarding and some of the winter sports, they've managed to create that balance, that culturally they've maintained their culture.
Yes.
You don't, while at the same time allowing those skateboarders who want to try and be competitive and want to go to the Olympics to do so. So I do think we can get it right and create that
Yeah.
balance, and that's the key challenge.
Yeah. Oh, it's
100%.
it's a similar mindset, isn't it, to the grassroots races and the big races. You're just sort of taking it up another level.
Yeah, as you say, you're giving choice to those who want the choice.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
not everybody will, it's the same. There are a lot of marathon runners who aren't interested in going to the Olympics because they get a better payday by doing a World Marathon Major.
Mhm.
That's absolutely fine. Others will want to have the kudos of going to an Olympics and saying they're an Olympian.
But you've got the base in marathons to have elites going to both, and we're just at the beginning and don't have the numbers yet, so it's still a bit of a argy-bargy, isn't it?
Hopefully not too many arguing, but
No.
hopefully talking to each other. But yes, it's yeah, and it's a sign of the growth of the sport that the conversations are actually happening, which is great.
Mm.
And I already saw this year, like when you say that people were choosing what to do, whether they were choosing to do longer 100-mile races or choosing to do the long trail world championships, people were already, with Jim Walmsley and Katie Scheid winning for a start, it's an amazing advert for it. And also I could see from the British athletes as well, they were really happy to say 26th in the world. Like it's a more official documentation of where they stand within the rest of the athlete base. So I think it's only going to continue to climb because that's just such an attractive race for them to do now.
Yeah. Well, we hope so. But yes, I think I know we have the Worlds every other year. There's the Europeans in the other year, and you'd like to think optimistically that I would hate the Worlds to go every year, because by having it every other year, it does mean that if you really, you don't have to sacrifice going every year.
Yeah.
So you could be an athlete who wanted to do the big UTMB one year, and then the next year you do a shorter race and you try for the World Championships, without having to create that clash every year. I think it is valuable.
But as always, we're always limited by the fact we only have 52 weeks a year.
And despite super shoes, even on the trails, you need a bit of time to recover after each race.
Yeah. Oh, well, Robin, have you got any more questions? Gosh, we've been...
No, she's answered them all. Thank you very much, Sarah.
Oh, thank you. It's been a pleasure to and talk. And Robin, where are you based? Are you north?
I'm just on the edge of the Peak District.
Okay, very nice.
Yeah. So it's a real playground here for both. Well, not for road running. Road running is rubbish. It's out and backs to Manchester or or the trails of the Peak District, and I know actually Edgeville both.
Oh, brilliant. Well, thank you so much, Sarah. Really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us.
No, thank you. And I hopefully even in 1 or 2 years we can come back and have another discussion and see what the progress has been.
Yes, I'll hold you to that.
Yes. Good. I look forward to it. And I look forward to seeing both. If you're coming up to do the hobble, I don't live that far away. Let me know. I will come out and give you some shouting.
Brilliant. If I can get through that mud again.
Oh, Katie, honestly, I'm sure since you've been, they've removed a lot of the mud.
Okay, I'll have to check it out then.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Cheers.